Live from Sin City, it's the Sox and Pinstripes podcast. And now, here's the star of the show, Giant Dr. Griffin!
Lucas, Giolito, and Chris Sale. This is Diet Dr. Griffin here, doing the inaugural episode of the Sox and Pinstripes podcast. Like any TV show that is starting off for the first time, you have what is called a pilot. That is the initial production of the show that goes to TV studios and they decide if they're going to make more or just seal it in a vault somewhere never to be seen or heard from again. Well, you don't have to worry about that with this show. You see, I'm doing this as sort of a New Year's resolution. A resolution to myself and a resolution to however many people are listening to this at the moment. I heard myself once say that you don't need to do a New Year's resolution because if you want to change your life, you can do it at any time that you want, any place, any destination, any whatever. And so it just so happens that we're sitting here at the end of the year, and I'm going to start this new year of 2024 off with a podcasting bang. There are going to be lumps along the way as I stumble about and figure out my voice and what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it to you. But there's one thing that is crystal clear. My mission here is to talk about the majesty of baseball, my favorite sport in the world. I don't need to watch people shoot basketballs into hoops in a gymnasium. I don't need to see men on golf courses whacking balls that are tinier than their other balls and walking across a green field to hit themselves again. I don't care to watch people kicking the ball around the pitch until they maybe decide that they're going to score one goal in 90 minutes. And hockey, which is basically soccer on crack, is much more enjoyable to watch, but I still can't find the puck. And last but certainly not least, you have the NFL and its minor league counterpart, college football, which is bigger than nearly every other sport combined. I'm really just not interested in a sport that just seems to destroy every single person that plays it. I'm sorry, that just doesn't strike me as fun. I want to have longevity with the people that I'm watching. I want to know their names and not be forced to learn a new bunch of people every single year. Because the people who I've grown in connection to and learned their names are washed up and no longer able to play at the age of 24. And so we come back to baseball, the sport where if you are an elite player, you're going to get a 10-year contract. And if you are a middling player, you're still going to have a 15-year career. You don't have to worry about being broken down by the age of 25. You're a pitcher and your arm falls off, well, we'll just replace your arm with a new arm and you'll be able to throw 100 miles an hour again in just over a year. I love this game. It was the game I grew up with, coming out of New England, a Boston Red Sox fan, the only team that seemed to matter in the world. The Red Sox, they signed Lucas Giolito to a 2-year, $38.5 million contract. Now Lucas had a good first half of the season, pitching to a 3.79 ERA and a 1.22 WHIP while he was with the Chicago White Sox. Then he was traded to the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles, where he would go 1-5 with a 6.89 ERA in 6 starts. Then things went from bad to worse when he was given waivers because of the fact that the Angels wanted to get under the salary cap. I mean, the CBT tax line for this year. The Cleveland Guardians picked him up, and he went 1-4 with a 7.04 ERA in 6 starts. Overall, he ended up with an 8-15 record, a 4.88 ERA, 204 strikeouts, and a 1.31 WHIP. And that makes somebody worth nearly $20 million. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around that, but that is the current environment that we are living in. And the question that everybody in Boston and all the Red Sox fans around the country are wondering is this a good signing for the team? Or are they just being cheap, small market owners, as the agents are suggesting that the Red Sox are being? I think you have to look at this as just one piece. If the Red Sox go out there and they pick up Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery or even Shota from Japan, this wouldn't be a bad move because they need pitchers to fill out the rotation, and Giolito has shown that he is capable of getting guys out. However, if they decide to go to the scrap pile for the rest of their pitching buys this year, then the Red Sox will likely be looking at another last place finish and be selling at the trading deadline, along with likely firing Alex Cora, who is entering the final year of his managerial contract. Last place is relative, as the AL East is the meat grinder of baseball, the toughest division by a country mile. And last place in the AL East has a decent chance every year of being better than the AL Central winner, who will be making a trip to the playoffs. It would be simply incredible if 4 teams out of the AL East made it to the playoffs. And now we have word that Chris Sale was traded to the Atlanta Braves along with cash considerations for infielder Vaughn Grissom. The Braves managed to land themselves a potential ace caliber pitcher for an infielder who is blocked at the major league level by Ozzie Albies and Orlando Arcia. And they got the Red Sox to pay $17 million of Chris Sale's contract to boot. For the Braves, this is a high-risk, high-reward situation, but one that they can afford to take because they have a championship roster already assembled. If Chris Sale is healthy, the Braves have a dominant pitcher to go third or fourth in their rotation. But if Chris Sale is injured again, then they basically are spending $10 million on a piece of porcelain. For the Red Sox, they get second baseman Vaughn Grissom, who has had 64 games at the major league level, hitting .287 with only 5 home runs. He will be 23 years old at the start of the season, and he is the odds-on favorite to land the starting second base job for the Red Sox. He would have had more time at the Bigs last year, but he had defensive struggles at the shortstop position and was taken over by Arcia. With 6 years of team control, Grissom should be a part of the Red Sox lineup for the foreseeable future. Now that Sale is no longer with the team, it is increasingly paramount that the Red Sox grab themselves another pitcher, preferably one of the 3 that I mentioned earlier, along with possibly a lower level arm to fill out the back end of the rotation. And you may think that because Sox and Pinstripes are in the name of this show, that we're only going to be talking about the Red Sox and the Yankees. You would be far from reality. There are 28 other teams that play baseball in the major leagues. And we're going to talk about all of them to varying levels. One such way that we're going to talk about them is through fantasy baseball, which is something that I adore. I am the commissioner of what I think is the best fantasy baseball league on planet Earth, the Marty Cordova Invitational, which is a head-to-head 12-team fantasy baseball free-for-all. Over the course of time, I'm going to try to get some of those managers to appear as guests on the show as we talk about our eclectic baseball passions. And now I think it's a good time to pivot into talking about some of the free agent signings that have already occurred. This is going to be a quick hit on some of the minor or smaller moves that have been made. There's going to be time for me to circle back and talk about Otani and Yamamoto and Soto, so don't think I'm ignoring them. I just want to talk about some small stuff and leave them for another episode of the show. Martin Maldonado to the White Sox. Well, I'm happy that he has a job, but the big question here is whether or not he's going to keep his hair orange, or is he going to be a silver fox? Because nothing says the White Sox like a man with white hair. Isaiah Kiner Falefa to the Blue Jays. I love this guy. He is clearly the best signing of the offseason. A defensive whiz at third base, and probably the biggest signal that Matt Chapman isn't coming back. Although everybody says he's just going to be a utility player, I think he's going to get the starting job there at third base. Jun-Ho Lee to the Giants, and forgive me if I mispronunciated his name. I think this is one of the worst signings of the offseason. Giving a guy $112 million who has never played a lick of baseball in the major leagues. And the KBO isn't the Japanese league. It's a step down from that. Mr. Lee has been a well-established hitter in that league, but he doesn't offer anything besides that bat and some good defense in the outfield. There's nothing there that screams, I'm worth $100+ million over 6 years. At best, he becomes a Luis Ariz level player where he's just a really good bat to put at the top of the lineup, but he doesn't offer power or speed. And I'm sorry, you don't pay $100 million to a guy that does just those two things. Then again, it's San Francisco, and the way that city has fallen over the past couple of decades, it just goes to show that people do not want to live there. And they are the perennial team that people will use to get higher offers from the teams that they actually want to play for. I'm talking about you, Arson Judge. Pretty boy Kevin Kiermaier stays put with the Toronto Blue Jays. That's fine. Mitch Garver to the Seattle Mariners. Aaron Nola decides to remain with the Phillies and takes less money to do so. The Braves were apparently hot and heavy with Nola and offered him more money than the Phillies did, but it was clear that from the beginning he wanted to stay in Philadelphia, and more power to him for staying where he wants to go. Frankie Montas to the Reds. This is one I'm surprised about. I thought the Yankees would retain Montas because it just screams the Yankees. It's what they would do. And Aaron Boone kept telling all of us, hey, Frankie's coming back. We got to get him here real soon. The Diamondbacks kept Lourdes Gurriel on a 3-year, $42 million contract. One of the best players in the league. And when I say best players, I mean the best hair in the game. Those two Gurriel boys, they do hair like it's nobody's business. Waka Waka Waka. Michael Waka signed with the Kansas City Royals for a 2-year, $32 million contract. More power to him. His pitching numbers under the hood have shown that he's been incredibly lucky the last 2 years. The Royals also signed Seth Lugo to a 3-year, $45 million contract. More power to a guy who started for 1 year and threw the same number of innings that he did the previous 3 prior and earned himself $45 million. I don't know if it's a great signing or not because he's in his mid-30s already, but gotta go get that money, buddy. Captain Jack Flaherty to the Tigers. Will Smith, formerly of the Texas Rangers, the reliever Will Smith, signed a deal with the Royals. The funny thing about Will Smith is that the last 3 years he's been on the championship winning team with the Braves, the Astros, and now most recently the Texas Rangers. So does that mean the Royals are going to win the championship this upcoming season? I don't think so, but he'll probably be traded to the team that does. So watch where this guy ends up midseason. The Reds added Jeimer Candelario to a 3-year, $45 million contract. Now, this is interesting because the Reds have a very, very young lineup, and there's not really a spot for Candelario, who played well at third base last year between stints with the Nationals and the Cubs. I'm struggling to find a clear place where Candelario is going to fit in that lineup. His money obviously will dictate that he does. It's one of the other youngsters on that team who's going to get shifted around, and they'll figure something out. Eduardo Rodriguez signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Gotta say, I like this move. They needed another pitcher, and they got one. Craig Kimbrell signed with the Baltimore Orioles. I wonder if he can modify his bird pose into something resembling an Oriole. I don't know what an Oriole pose is like, but maybe he can work on that in the offseason. Luis Severino goes to the Mets on a 1-year deal. Well, at least he can probably keep his apartment in New York. The Cardinals went early on pitching, grabbing Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson to form one of the oldest rotations in baseball. I'm not sure how well this is going to work out for the Cardinals because Yachty was the straw that stirred the drink on that team, and he is no longer there. At least playing anyway, he still has a role on that team in some kind of special consultant capacity. And that concludes my recap. If I missed you, I apologize, and we'll have to talk about you another day. And to conclude the show today, I'm going to say a quick little lightning round of Griff-Dictions on where players are going to go who are still out there. I think Matt Chapman is going to go to the Giants. They need to get somebody, and he's been out in the Bay Area before, so he kind of knows that area. I think Jordan Montgomery is going to go back home with the Yankees, where he played prior to the last couple of trades. Blake Snell is going to sign with the Colorado Rockies. Just kidding. I think he's going to end up with the Mets. Josh Hader is going to go and close for the Rangers. I think it just makes a lot of sense. They have a glaring need in the bullpen, and they're a win-now team. Justin Turner, I think, is going to reunite and feel so good with the Mets. But if it's not him, they're probably going to go get J.D. Martinez. They have a clear need at DH. Shota's going to end up in Boston. I just got a feeling that's where he's going to go. Cody Bellinger and his bong pipe is going to stay in Chicago with the Cubs. I think Marcus Stroman's going to end up with the Yankees. He's sort of one of these weird guys who's burned his bridges all over the place. But Stroman's a guy who can pitch, and the Yankees definitely need another arm. I'd love to see Teoscar Hernandez in Boston. Not sure it's going to happen, but I'm hoping it does. Otherwise, those pesky little Dodgers are going to scoop in and pick him up. And Tim Anderson ends up with the Cleveland Guardians, having to share an infield with the man who knocked him out like a punk. And one special final pick, Joey Votto. I love this guy, and I hope he plays one more year. I don't think he's going to be in Cincinnati now that they got Candelario, but I got a feeling 1 year in Toronto as their DH. I just think that's going to be a good fit. And wherever Joey you end up, I think I'm going to try and go and visit you this year, just like I did with Miggy Cabrera. And now it is time to bid you adieu. The first episode of the show is now complete. Look forward to talking to you guys again about baseball. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some more information, some more signings, and rumblings about the season that's coming up in barely 3 months. Have a safe and happy new year, everybody, and catch you on the flip side.